Welcome into the Common Dad Podcast Season 2. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you even more if you are watching. I am, of course, joined by Andrew, and Ryan, I think, is coaching his son to the Little League World Series. Two things happened this week. First of all,
boy, busy
Andrew,
week.
how are you on this fine morning, evening, or afternoon?
I have this, so I'm okay.
Okay. I have this, so I'm not. It's not a real drink. It's something
The
that
children
tastes like...
test our patience,
So
and then eventually we forget.
that's true. Yeah, they test them all day long. My wife was gone the first 2 days of this week, so that, yeah.
Oh, fun.
She's back, thank God. Real quick story. She got on her flight, and apparently the pilot came over the intercom and said that they actually had to add some fuel, which feels like that should probably be on the checklist before we get people on the plane. So let's get the fuel on the plane. So he said we had to top off the fuel, and because of that, we're now overweight. So they had to pick a couple passengers. Can you imagine?
Pick you and you.
Hey, fatty, this 747 can't carry you. We'll get you on the next barge. I hope they got a voucher or something. That's a shot to the psyche in any way, shape, or form.
Seriously, wow.
I don't know. I'm hoping there were some volunteers or something, but
I mean, if they're giving something away, usually there's volunteers.
yeah. But if they weren't, I can imagine.
Oh no, they're gonna give something away. They're not gonna.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, those tickets by that point, yeah, they're gonna give you. They're gonna put you on the next flight, but they're gonna give you an upgrade or something.
We're gonna give you a treadmill, so this doesn't happen again. Or a Stairmaster or a Peloton, whatever you want. And by the way, Peloton, if you want to sponsor us, we're all
or
ears.
Aviation Gin,
What is that?
an alcohol
Oh,
company.
it's gin. Yeah, I thought you said gym.
No,
you said
Aviation
gym.
Gin.
Yeah, I
It's
prefer
Ryan
that
Reynolds
better.
Gin. He did the whole commercial thing with Peloton where he made fun of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I prefer
He
the
hired the girl from their commercial. Yeah.
If Peloton sponsored us and they sent us free Pelotons, bikes, whatever those are, would we podcast from the bikes live? Or do we
No,
not
I would
ride
make
them
my
at all?
wife use it. So. Isn't that their whole commercial? The husband buys the wife the Peloton as a Christmas gift.
Is it?
Yeah, that's why Ryan Reynolds made fun of them with the aviation commercial.
Yeah, I thought you meant that was the
Because
actual
the
commercial.
husband bought one for his wife for Christmas.
Incredible.
Merry Christmas, honey. Here you go.
Man, that would be, that's death. But anyway, two horrible but I feel essential things happened to my oldest son this week. First one being, and I feel like this is a rite of passage as the oldest brother, his younger brother deleted all of the saved game on Zelda. And it was the game was beat, and we were moving on to the side missions.
Start at the beginning, son.
And we fired that thing up the other day, and you hear Zelda's voice, Link, wake up, and he goes, Dad, what is this? I was like,
Can we
I don't
load
know,
from
buddy.
the save instead of starting a new one?
He was like,
We did.
who did this? And I was like, well, it certainly wasn't your 12-month-old brother, and I know it wasn't me. He was so mad. But I feel like that's supposed to happen, right?
It happens to everybody at some point.
Well, you're the youngest, so you're the
It
one who
happens
does
to
it.
everybody at some point. I don't know that
That's
I ever
true.
did that to my brothers. I may have, but
Yeah, I'm sure
I know
we
I've
did.
definitely done that myself accidentally, and we've definitely had a couple. Back in N64, you had the memory
Memory.
packs.
Yeah.
We would lose
Yeah.
those, and
But see, that was even a little more anxiety, because you could, you have your game, but you could just physically lose it.
yeah,
It's just gone. It's well, my game's saved somewhere in this house, and you actually have to go seek out your file, which seems bizarre. But, so yeah, that happened. He was pissed about that. And then at the bus stop, he's going to public school this year. He's in kindergarten, and somebody told him that Santa Claus was not real. And I was like, well, I feel like it's kind of supposed to happen
Did he trip
that way.
and push?
No, he was just he's not an angry kid for the most part. So he came home And I got a story about that. I am an angry child. Was an angry child. Probably still am a child.
Should have told him that defending Santa gets him a couple extra presents.
So yeah, probably. So he came home and he asked me about it. And me being a good father, brushed it off, and we pivoted.
We'll
and
let the wife deal with this.
Right. But I don't know. I don't want to back up. Do you reinforce the lie?
I think you got to rip the Band-Aid off.
Or do we rip the Band-Aid off?
No,
He's 6.
You got to tell him.
Because
You
okay,
gotta
so
let
how
him
much
in on the
longer?
gimmick, but you got to get him in on, like, especially now. I mean, we're like
Yeah.
Christmas is around the corner. I think you capitalize on the opportunity. You let him in on the secret.
Okay.
He's got 2 younger siblings. You get him in on the gag and let him enjoy the other side of it while his younger siblings are still suckers.
Yeah.
And you let him put the other kids to bed, and then maybe you set the cookies out with the older one, and you can have a different conversation with him. And
yeah,
you each take a bite of the cookies, and it's like, haha, they're tomorrow they're gonna think that it was, I don't know.
Or
you let him,
do I
you let him in on it?
Do I inception him? And because at our local Kroger, the guy who does the Santa Claus locally, he just works at the register. Do I pay him like $25 while we're doing that to sneak outside my house? And I'm like, oh my God, Santa Claus is real. And then I just completely mess him up. Or do I just go with your plan?
Well, I mean, if you want to go all in, I think you hire the guy to go to the other kid's house and beat the other kid up.
Okay.
Then the other kid comes back to your son and says, hey, I was wrong. Santa's real.
That's probably the way
he came to my house.
That's probably the way to fix it. There you go. Yeah, that's true. I think I'm going to
creepy old guy from Kroger to somebody's house.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. As far as fake Santa Clauses go, working at the grocery store, he's nice enough. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off, because how much longer in the lifespan of believing Santa Claus does he actually have? 2 years? Like, once you get the third, like, once
how
you get
long do you think you could keep up the I mean, is there money riding on this? Could we get him into like teenage years still believing it?
If you would have to really shelter the child to the point of things being
not
illegal,
necessarily.
but it's possible.
If he's a sucker, you never know. I mean,
it's true. That's a good point. And he is my
no,
first.
They're lying because they're on the naughty list, so their parents have to buy him presents. They don't get presents from Santa. You're good. You get presents from Santa.
When my
it's
older
all
brother,
about how well you are at lying.
Yeah, that's true. I'm good enough. When my older brother told me the Easter Bunny wasn't real, we were on our way to the orthodontist to get braces on his jacked up teeth. Mine were perfect, still are. And I told him that he's going to pay for that. And when he gets his braces on, I'm going to punch him in the face. And he laughed at me. And he got his braces on. And we were pulling into the parking spot in our house, the driveway. And I punched him right in the face and busted his brand new braces off. And that was the only time I ever hit him. That was it. But he deserved it.
I'm sure
anyway,
that messed up his like the lips too. No, I mean that braces are like sharp on the inside.
Yeah, and I'm sure my parents had to pay twice, so I'm sure they were absolutely thrilled about that. That's
all on the copay, isn't it?
Tiny little scar on my knuckle. Anyway, speaking of
complete distraction. Wow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember I tried to play it off by saying like, "Look, my knuckle's busted," which almost worked. Probably not. But anyway, that brings us into the actual subject. So. This morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you happen to be listening,
just pick
or
one.
Watching. Yeah. What?
I said just pick one.
Just pick one. It doesn't matter. We'll be talking about how we manage and what kind of influence and voices we kind of allow into our children's lives. For us, it's going to be a little different and a little more narrow, I feel like, because our kids are in the same age bracket,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm starting to loosen up a little bit with my oldest one, because I don't know. What do you think?
We are big fans of the idea of having as many other people speak into our child's lives as possible. We do not want to be the only ones. We want as many people as possible, because we believe that if there's a lot of people and generally all of them are saying the same thing, it tends to set into their minds a little bit more than if just mom and dad are saying it.
Sure.
You do have to be careful, obviously, especially nowadays, popular culture. There's so many crazy things out there. You have to be careful. But I think for the most part, who you surround yourself with, you should be comfortable being mentors to your kids. So
Yes.
it's really about conditioning yourself and conditioning your inner circles. There's plenty of, leadership talks about, you surround yourself with the people you want to become.
Right.
So if you're striving for success, you want to surround yourself with successful people.
Okay.
I think very similarly, you want to surround yourself with people who can be good mentors to your kids. If the people you're surrounding yourself with, you wouldn't want your kids to hang out with, they're probably not people you should be hanging out with. And when you start to make those changes, when you start to make those changes, I think you'll be able to allow your kids to hang out with them. You'll be able to go out all together, you, your friends, and your kids. Whether your friends have kids or not, their kids could obviously join. And I think that can be really beneficial for that group of people to then all influence each other in positive ways.
Yeah, I don't think that, and I mean, obviously it changes when you become a parent who you hang out with and everything, but I don't think I've ever been, but I've heard parents say, oh, so-and-so is coming over, you go to another room. That's probably not, if that person's coming into your house, like, maybe they don't need to be in your house if you don't want your children around them that much. Like,
exactly.
That's a pretty big red flag. And I've heard that before, and I just don't. I don't know. I think that's a pretty bad thing. I don't want to say super common, but I've definitely heard it before. But no, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Like, right now, if I'm trusting you to be around my kid, I have all the trust that I have in you. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm trusting you to take care of my kid in any capacity, I would trust you with my life. Like, they go hand in hand. I think it's so important to have, like you said, a lot of people, different voices, because my oldest is starting to get to the age where he doesn't really listen to everything I tell him for the simple fact because it's coming from me. And that's it.
100%.
So it's like, well, now I've got to make sure I've got, people in other corners that I know that he's going to go to as he gets older, but I know they're going to be saying the same thing I'm saying, or they're going to be, passing along the same general message. Right. Because if you don't have that and you've got people that are giving different messages, my kid's not old enough yet to know the problems, but I feel like there would be some pretty decent sized problems there, because then you're going to have, well, so-and-so told me this. And if they're the same age as you, that could get pretty bumpy pretty quick. Now, let me ask you this. And I think we kind of touched on this on another episode. So Elijah's getting into, like I said, he's in kindergarten now. He's in public school. So he's he's being kind of opened up to the world a little bit. As far as, not every house is like our house. Not every mommy and daddy teach their kids the same things or how to act, or, oh, so-and-so pushed me. Why did he push me? I don't know. Parents suck. I don't know what to say. No. But, it's just, he comes home with all these, stories sometimes.
Yep.
The other day I looked in the back seat and he goes, "Daddy, look at my new fingers." And he is double birding. And I was like, buddy, just put, and he was acting like he was flapping his wings because it's the bird. So in his mind, he was like, I was like, just put those down. Just use these fingers. Why? Just do it. Okay, fine. And we move on. But my point is, there's some things that he's going to encounter, in kindergarten and as he goes on to middle school, where he's going to come in front of a person who is an influence in his life, whether it be a classmate or a teacher or whatever, that isn't necessarily a negative influence, but they are an obstacle.
Well,
So, but I
obstacles are
kind of
good,
want
though.
him to learn how to navigate that, but
100%.
but with me helping him, because while he's this age, I can still,
Well,
if something
so
bad
those are
enough
the
happened, I can take
conversations
him out
you're
of
able
that
to have with
class.
him at night when he comes home and says, "Hey, look what I learned in school."
Yes.
And you're able to have a conversation about it, and how you
Yes.
navigate that conversation can last with him. If you talk about encouraging others instead of hurting others, or how strong our words can be,
Right.
to others, it's important to take those moments to really guide them. But the moments that are going to test them like that, where they go out into the world and they learn other things, are so important.
Yeah, I agree.
I had a friend who does not have children ask me just recently, actually, like, why would you let your kids watch this? Or, different things coming out on Disney, or
Sure.
whatever the topic is. And their primary question is, oh, I would never let my kids watch that. I would never allow that in my house. I would never fill in the blank with whatever that is for you in your household.
Right.
And my response to them was actually relatively simple. I need to prepare my kids. My job as a parent is to prepare my kids to live in the world,
Yes.
not in my shelter.
Right.
If I shelter my kids from the entire world, their entire life, when they turn 18 and they go off to college,
Look
they are
out.
going to get smacked in the face with everything this world has to offer. And it's going to knock them off their feet.
Yep.
I need to prepare them to live in the world, to see those obstacles, to navigate those obstacles, and to still come out on the other side as a decent human being.
Exactly.
So I think, obviously, like you mentioned, your kids are in public school. They're going to learn a lot of things, and you're going to have
Yeah.
a lot of conversations about what's right and what's wrong, and why it's wrong, and why we don't do those things, or why those things shouldn't be encouraged. But
Yeah.
those are all important conversations in shaping who they become later on. And more importantly, if the people you are surrounding yourself with are all discouraging those things and disciplining those things the same way you are, they will learn those things are bad and we shouldn't do them. And when they see those things out there in the world, hopefully they will stand up and say, hey, we shouldn't do that. That's not nice.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we all know that one kid who was, either, I don't want to say homeschooled because I feel like that's a kind of a stigma on homeschooled kids, but that kid who was super sheltered his whole life. And, they get to college and, hey, man,
Free
it's
reign.
free game. And it's, oh, what's that you say you have? You want me to try? Sure. I've never heard of it. What could possibly go wrong? Or it's you want to have those conversations when you're able to, when they're more receptive, quite frankly. Like, when our kids are in 4th and 5th grade, they're going to be more apt to actually listen to what we
It
have to
depends
say.
on the topic, but
Yeah,
true. There's certainly, we have conversations with Alex all the time about encouraging those around him instead of saying mean things, because he sees it.
Yeah.
We'll go to the playground and the kids will be making fun of each other. Ha ha, you can't do, I can throw it better than you can. I can do this better than you can. Ha ha,
Right.
and they're putting each other down.
Yeah.
At whatever it is, whether it's the monkey bars or throwing or hitting or kicking a soccer ball, or it's just discouragement upon discouragement everywhere you look. And I look at my kids and they continue to encourage each other and they continue to support each other. And it's an awesome moment where we continue to instill in them that they need to support each other no matter what. And they need to encourage each other, because part of getting better is failing or not being. You have to play people who are better than you at basketball in order to get better.
Right.
And so you're never going to be the best, but that's not something to be sad about. So
Right.
it's interesting to see him observing all of these things in the wild, and then having some conversations with him, and then seeing him go back out and encourage his brother.
Yeah.
His brother's
absolutely.
4 years younger than him, and compared to him,
Yeah.
utter trash. And he could be making fun of his brother left and right, and everybody
Right.
around him is doing the exact same thing, he would be fitting in with the crowd, but instead of doing that, he's encouraging his brother.
Yes, absolutely. And it's tricky because I think, again, right now, I think it's relatively easy is probably not the right word, but it's easier. But what I kind of worry about is because we can control, as far as adults go, who is in and not in their lives. Like that's an easy door to open and shut. But as they get older, they're going to make friends at school, and we can't really determine who they're hanging out with, at least at school. Like that kind of is what it is. So I don't know how I'm going to police that. Can you? Or do you kind of lean on the values that you're instilling now?
Well, you try to create
course correct that.
I mean, you have to analyze that as you go, I think. You have to see kind of the questions he's asking. But I think, again, if you build up a group of friends or a support group, I'm not saying you have to go to church, but like Sarah and I, we are regularly attending a church, and we have a group of friends within that church, and we hang out with that group of friends. We go out on Friday nights. We go out on Sunday afternoons. We will invite them to the beach, and we'll all go to the beach on Saturdays. Like whatever that is, we hang out with these people. They are friends. Some of them have kids and some of them don't, but we all have a similar, belief structure in what we think is right and what we think is wrong. We all have very similar personalities and very similar, parenting styles, if you will. And so, I mean, to answer your question, I would say if you feel as though there's a bad influence in your child's life that you are unable to remove, whether that's something at school or something where you have no control over the situation, it's just there and you have to deal with it, then I would say the best thing you could do is to build up an even bigger group of people on your side and spend as much time with them as possible.
If you're lucky enough to grow up, in the same community that you were relatively not born into, but at a young age, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, if you're lucky enough for that kid goes from in that community from 5th grade all the way up through high school, I think the ideal plan would be to have, their friend group, and you are also friends with their parents or whoever, and then that way, wherever they are, they're getting, the kids, the parents. If they're not going to come to you about something, maybe they'll go to one of those parents about something, but that it's fine. Like, you're not worried
because you hang out with them.
Exactly, because you know them and that they've been there since, 4th grade soccer. So, like, you don't really have to worry about it. That's my goal. That's what I want. I think it's really hard to do, but I do think it's possible, and I think there's a little bit of accountability with that, because when that kid knows all those all their friends' parents as well, they kind of have an idea of they're going to be accountable for if they impact one of their friends negatively. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it just kind of becomes this, like, I'll never forget when me and my best friend we were playing downstairs. Oh gosh, we were probably like 7th, 8th grade or something. And I've known this kid since the 7th grade. And I don't know what happened. We broke a wall. Or I went through one, rather. And she comes to the top of the steps. His name is Dustin. And she screams, "Justin!" And I was like, "Oh, man, that's you." And she was like, "No, Justin." And I was like, "Oh." And, like, when you get yelled at by your friend's parent, like, I will never forget. Like, I remember vividly, her name is Pam. She's staring at the top of the stairs down at me with a vacuum cleaner. And she's like, "What happened?" And I look over and my friend's just like, "Don't look at me, dude. Like, you
straight under the bus.
Yeah, you are under fire right now." And I mean, we had a conversation about how I'm supposed to act in her house, and there was no, "Oh, I'm calling home to your parents." It's just, no, we're just going to handle this now, and that's it. And it was handled, and it was, all right, thanks, appreciate my house, love you, and we're done with it. And I remember when I went home, I told my dad about it, and he was like, "Good. Don't do that again, dummy." And
exactly.
There was no picking up the phone, like, "Don't talk to my kid that way." But it was just, my dad knew that Pam handled that correctly without even needing a story. He just knew. And Pam knew that she could do that with me. She knew that she could speak to me that way, and that was perfectly acceptable. In my mind, I'm like, that's the accountability that I want my kid to kind of grow up with, where there's that mutual respect for friends and, you know, adults all around them. Easier said than done, but when I think of, you know, that goal, that's kind of that's the story that comes to mind. Is I want my friends' parents to be able to scream at my kids, and it's fine. I guess is what it really boils down to. So, but again, easier said than done. But like I said, I think as they grow, it just changes. Probably with every grade, at least until they get out of high school. And then after college, what do you do after that? You just Jesus take the wheel? I don't know. Just
cross your fingers and hope you did a good job up until there.
There's a comedian, I don't know who he is, I don't want to take credit for the joke, but he said that raising a child is kind of like bowling. You let the ball go, and then you can't really control it after that, but you still kind of go, eh. And if you're listening, you should be watching. You just kind of act like you're pushing the ball to the left and the right, but in reality, you're probably not doing anything. But you feel like
not doing anything. You're not doing anything,
but you're trying really hard. Exactly. I feel like I have more control when they're, you know, this age now. But once you get into college, it's very much, you know, turning the entire controller when you're trying to move your character on Mario. Like it's not helping. You're not doing anything. It's the thought that counts, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I will I'll let you know what we do with Elijah's Santa Claus situation here.
I think you let him in. You let him in on the gag.
Yeah. Do I make him build toys in the basement? Yeah, that'll probably get somebody called on me, but we'll see. It's a developing story. I will definitely we will update it on the next episode. Well, boys and girls, thank you so much for listening. And, of course, if you're watching, thank you even more. Do not forget to follow us on our brand new YouTube channel at The Common Dad Podcast. And, of course, we are on Instagram at The Common Dad and on Facebook at, of course, The Common Dad. Thank you so much for listening. Like, subscribe, follow, and any other thing you want to do, comment, please. We will see you next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching today's episode of The Common Dad Podcast. Let us know if you liked the video by giving us a thumbs up. Even if you didn't, give it a thumbs up anyway. Be sure to subscribe, click the bell to get notifications every time we post a new video. Also, do not forget to follow us on Instagram at @the_common_dad and on Facebook at The Common Dad so you can let us know your thoughts on today's episode.